Hi, everyone. John Michael Coppola here, and welcome to the Chicago Theater Makers Podcast, where we chat with the actors, directors, choreographers, designers, producers, music directors, lyricists, playwrights, and all the artists who make the Chicago area theaters come alive. We're so excited to have you here with us today. But before we get started, we just want to remind you to please like, subscribe to, and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues who you think would appreciate the conversations we're having. We'd be so grateful for your support in this way so we can continue to bring these stories for years to come. Thanks again for being here, and now, curtain up on today's episode. Today's episode is part of our ongoing Out of the Loop series, which features conversations with artists who may or may not have any ties to Chicago. But today's guest has a long history here before he lost them to film, TV, and Broadway, so their inclusion in this series is well warranted. He began his theater career at the age of 15 in a suburb of Detroit, Michigan, playing the offstage role of the voice of teacher, using his trombone to provide the unintelligible wah-wah in Snoopy. At the age of 16, he finally dared to step on stage as Sir Harry in Once Upon a Mattress, and alas, a love affair with the theater began. He went on to study theater at Wayne State University in Detroit, where he received the Lily Tomlin Scholarship for Theater. One of his great joys at WSU was performing in various Shakespeare plays such as Love Labour's Lost, The Merchant of Venice, and As You Like It. His professional career began after his junior year in college when he was cast as Sparky in the Detroit company of Forever Plaid. In 1994, he made the move to Chicago to reprise his role in the original Chicago company at the Royal George Theatre. After over 800 performances, he began working in Chicago's many renowned regional theaters, and over the next decade performed in productions at Steppenwolf, Chicago Shakespeare, Northlight, Court Theatre, Apple Tree Theatre, and Marriott Theatre. In 2003, he was cast as Trevor Graydon in the first national tour of Thoroughly Modern Millie, which he performed for a year. Incidentally, it was that tour on which he worked with my wife, and we all became friends. A year later, he was on the road again, this time in Mamma Mia playing Sam Carmichael, the American dad, for 2 years. This led him to New York, and in 2008, he joined the Broadway company, making his debut as Sam Carmichael. He has since been based in New York, having performed on and off Broadway. In 2020, he received a Tony Award nomination for his role as Steve Healy in Jagged Little Pill. And the original Broadway cast recording was the recipient of the 2020 Grammy Award. Other Broadway credits include Floyd Collins, Parade, Honeymoon in Vegas, where he stood by for Tony Danza, and On the Clear Day You Can See Forever, standing by for Harry Connick Jr. He also has numerous films and television shows to his credit, including Song Sung Blue, Dope Sick, Intermedium, Gentry Trial vs. the Underworld, Mr. Robot, and many more. These days, you can catch him as Walter in the musical Chess, currently running at the Imperial Theatre on Broadway. I hope you enjoy my conversation with my good friend, Sean Allan Krill. Now let's go to the top of the show. Hi, Sean. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, John. It's good to see you.
You too. Thank you so much for joining me here on the podcast.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. All things considered, it's a sort of a gray day here in Skokie, Illinois, but we have daylight savings coming up, I think next week. So really looking forward to
Saturday night. I can't
yes.
wait.
Yes.
Yeah.
My favorite time of year. One
Absolutely.
of them anyway. Yeah. And things are good with you in New York?
Great. Same. Gray, rainy.
Amazing. Yeah.
But we're looking forward to warmer temperatures and it's gonna stay light later now after Saturday night. So I can't wait.
Hard. Yeah, me too. So listen, as is our custom here on the podcast, we always like to start the same way. And that's by asking our guests to please tell our listeners a little bit about where you grew up, a little bit about your training, and then finish up with your first theater experience. So I hand it off to you.
Well, I moved all around when I was a kid. So I was an Air Force brat. So I was all over the country, basically. But by the time I got to junior high and high school, I was in a suburb of Detroit, Michigan. And I was very involved in music. I played trombone, and I was in the marching band, and I was the drum major, and also very involved in visual arts. I thought I was, at that point when I was a kid, I thought I was going to be a commercial artist. So I was very involved in art and music. And I kind of got pulled into the theater department because of those connections. I would help with the set. I would help with, I was in many orchestras and, in the musicals. And I got really intrigued about actually, maybe stepping on stage. One of my very first experiences was actually I played the trombone, like I said, and so they needed someone to stand off stage right and be the voice of the teacher in the musical Snoopy. You know, Snoopy exclamation point. It's like the other Charlie Brown musical, you know?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
your good man Charlie Brown, and then there's Snoopy. And so I stood off stage right and just went, you know, and just
I
with my
love
mute.
that.
And so I got really intrigued about stepping on stage. The next musical the next year was Once Upon a Mattress. And I auditioned and I got cast as Sir Harry. And, you know, everybody was just shocked because no one had ever really heard me sing. I always just sang with my family in the car, you know, to the radio. Yeah. And then suddenly there I was, you know, on stage going like, in a little while, just a little while, you know, and my mom was like, what the, who, how, you know, yeah, I was just hooked. And so I ended up going to college and studying all three things, art, music, and theater. And by my second year, I was like, I'm sticking with theater. I just, did I answer all your questions?
You did. No, that's great. Now, I'm curious, you said you sang in the car with your family, but are you the only one that pursued the arts as a career in your family?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But
and
everyone
actually, my father's name is Allan Krill. And so it's kind of a thing in the lineage of the men in our family that the son gets the father's name as his middle name. And my dad always wanted to be a dancer. He was a very, very good like swing, like Lindy Hop kind of dancer. Cool. And he always wanted to be a professional dancer. He was in the Air Force and never was able to pursue it. Always kind of wanted to be in, you know, in showbiz. So that's actually why I use my middle name as my professional name, because I wanted to sort of include my father.
That's wonderful. I didn't know that the arts was a lineage in your family. I usually ask, are you the only person in your family with artistic pursuits? But
well,
nice to
nobody ever pursued it, but we all sing. Everybody sings and dances, and gotcha. But it was never professional in any way.
Well, it's nice to know that those types of families, of course, always have the support system that us pursuing the arts have and need and want.
Yeah.
So that's very, very cool. About the trombone thing, do you still play? Like, do you still pick it up now?
You know, I don't really. I wish I did. I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, you have to keep the embouchure. You have to keep it. And once you don't, it's, you know, it's a muscle. And so once you haven't exercised that, and it's a very odd muscle, you know, you know, and so it's not like you just naturally keep that strong in your daily life unless you're playing every day. And so I've tried a couple times over the years to pick it up and see if I can still make a sound, and I can. It's sort of, you know, it is by memory. Like I can kind of make but it's nowhere near the quality or, you know, what I used to be able to do. That's for sure.
Sure. I figured I'd ask because there's such a demand nowadays for being like not just an actor, singer, dancer, but also a musician.
Right.
So
I did do a show. I did a show at the Public with Alex Timbers, and it was this David Byrne Alex Timbers show called Joan of Arc. And at the beginning of the process, they did the thing where they were like, "Does anybody play any instruments?" And I was like, "Okay, very, very, very little trombone, very little piano, very little guitar, but I can do some things on those instruments." Flash forward like 3-4 weeks, and there I am. He's like, great. It says here that you play trombone. We're going to have you play a trumpet. I was like, I wanted to be like, that is so not the same thing.
Not at all.
It is so wildly different. So there I was, like, just like trying to make a sound on a trumpet. It was, so they cut.
Did they cut that?
Yeah. No. Let's have the trumpet player from the orchestra make that sound. Yeah.
Hey, you know what? At least they gave it a shot. You give it a shot. Team player. You know,
gosh,
it was not from lack of trying. Tell us how you moved to Chicago from the Detroit area and from school.
So I studied. I went to Wayne State University in Detroit, and I was studying there. And the summer, or actually in the middle of my junior year, I went because a part of the training was to start trying to go to auditions and actually see how that pans out and kind of get some experience in that realm under your belt. And so I went to an audition for Forever Plaid. At that point, it was at the Gem Theatre in Detroit. And this is like 1993 at this point. And I auditioned and didn't hear anything. And then the summer rolled around, and I get this call that I got it, that I got the, they wanted me to come and be the understudy for Sparky and Smudge. And for those who don't know Forever Plaid, it's like a 4-part boy harmony group kind of a show that uses like music from the late 50s and early 60s. And so I was thrilled. And the reason I'm telling you that is because ultimately, at that point, Forever Plaid was a big hit, and it was a big hit in New York, and they had opened up a Detroit company. There was, I think at that point, a Las Vegas company, and they had plans to open a Chicago company. And so I did that show at the Gem in Detroit that summer, went back to school, finished my schooling, and then the plans started rolling for Chicago, Forever Plaid. And I drove over to Chicago and auditioned and got it. And so I opened the Chicago production of Forever Plaid at the Royal George. Oh, actually, randomly,
look at that.
I'm drinking from a mug from that show. And it was just this amazing sort of entree into Chicago theater. And I did that show there for 2 years. I moved there in the summer of 1994 to start rehearsals for Forever Plaid.
And that was after your senior year?
Well, honestly, to be completely honest, I never actually finished my senior year because I started working.
Yeah.
And it was this strange sort of choice I had to make of like, do I take this job or do I continue with school? And Wayne State, everyone at Wayne State was wonderful about it. I remember talking to several people for advice, what I should do, should I stay at school? Should I go and do this show? And they very wisely said, school will always be here, and we're training you to actually do what you're doing, and you're getting work. So, fly, be free. So that was lovely.
I'm so glad to hear that, because I know a lot of people who are in the university setting now or who recently graduated, and they're very talented, but for the entirety of their school career, they were not allowed to do shows outside of school, even in the professional theater.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I'm like, but it's literally what you're in school for. And there are people hiring you to do the thing, like people who you should be getting to know now.
Right. And
it's just shocking to me that somehow the thought has shifted in some schools, not all, of course. So I'm glad to know that they had the confidence.
Yeah, I mean,
it was give you the agency to take the job. Yeah,
right. I had been cast in a show at school, and it was, it wasn't easy for them to say, go away, but because I was a senior at that point, and I had been cast in the lead, and it was a big deal for me. I remember going into the chair's office and sitting down with him and saying, I just don't really know what to do here, and he was direct. It was his last show. It was his swan song as chair. He had been in the chair for like 25 years. Oh, and he was directing it, and I was playing the lead. And so I went directly to him, and he very graciously was like, I remember him going, well, shit. And then, but he said, well, darling, school will always be here, and this is what we're training you for. I mean, I just thought that was so, like I said, gracious and very, very big of him. And then he said, do you have any ideas who I should get to replace you? So it was I think probably a very specific, situation with him. But yes, you're right. It was very lovely of them to not just demand that I stay and finish it and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And like many artists in our field, you've proven that success in the theater or in anywhere in the arts doesn't require a degree.
No one's ever asked me for it. That's for sure. All these years later. But I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just sort of following my instinct at that point, like you do. Yeah. But it's worked out. It's worked out pretty well.
Yes, it has. Yeah, I'd say so.
But I'm very proud of my my time at Wayne and what they taught me,
Yeah.
and so it's nice to talk about it.
Given that you took that opportunity to use your instincts, and a lot of our craft is instinctual and some of it is learned, what type of tips and tricks do you have in your actor's toolbox that you like to employ when you get cast at a show, either a show that's an established show or even doing a new work when you're developing a character from scratch?
I mean, honestly, I go back to the training of, because I was trained as an actor. It wasn't a musical theater program. I realized that I approach everything as a play. I just, and I've learned a lot from some amazing directors and musical directors. The folks on the creative side of the table. I've learned a lot from them over the years. Just I've always just felt like a sponge, and I still do, and I never really want to stop learning. Like, what can I learn from this person? They bring a very, very different color to the art that they create, and I want to learn from that. And I've just always tried to stay open, but to go back to actually sitting down with the play and then looking at where this part that I'm playing, where does that fit in? What is its function? How do I help better tell that story, as opposed to what do I want from it? What is my job? What is this character's function in this play? And that is almost always the answer, whether it's a comedy or a drama. I think basing it in an earnest, honest place, basing it in a world where it is there to serve the piece and not me, is always funnier. It's always more dramatic. I mean, it just seriously, like, it always is the answer as to how to make it ultimately work, if it's going to work well. Yeah.
If you had to pick a few people in your life and career that were some of the more influential people in your life that help you learn some new skills to develop character, or even that you use on a regular basis, who would some of those people be?
Well, I mean, there are many. As I said, there are many, many people that I've learned from. If I had to pick a few, I mean, first and foremost, I always have to go back to my high school drama teacher. I never actually took class from her. Like I said, I was always in art and music, but right. She was Mrs. DeWolf, Betty DeWolf at Eisenhower High School. She was the one that was like, I told her my senior year that we didn't have a lot of money, so I didn't have money to go to college. So I told her that I was going to maybe enroll in the local community college. And she literally grabbed me by the ear and dragged me to the counselor's office. And while she was dragging me, she was like, "You have too much to offer. You've got to keep going to school. And there's money out there. We just have to find it." And she took me to the counselor's office, and sure enough, we found some scholarships, and that's why I ended up going to Wayne State. And then, while I was at Wayne State, I had many amazing acting professors, but the one that I always come back to is, her name is Dinah Lynch, and she's actually coming to see Chess tomorrow, and I'm so excited to see her, because she's just been such a force, creative force in my life. I realize all these years later. She just, I was a teenage boy, and I had all kinds of walls built up, and you just can't, if you're an actor, you just can't have the walls. You have to be able to at least open up a little bit and really be vulnerable. And, it's a very scary thing for any actor. And she was just so good at getting through to, the sort of truth of what I was always trying to do. And, like any young actor, I was just sort of putting on, the veil or the coat of, like, I'm sad, I'm angry, and, she was just an incredible teacher and taught me how to actually access that. And it was, I still think about what she taught me to this day. And I'm so grateful, and I can't wait to see her tomorrow.
Oh my God, that's so exciting!
Yeah. I know I'm going to be nervous. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But I mean, my partners in life, Guy Adkins, who we lost in 2010.
Yes,
I
we're going to get to
learned
him in a minute. Yeah.
I learned so much from him. I remember one of the wisest things he ever said to me. I came home from a rehearsal process once, and I was just like, I just don't understand what she's doing in this scene. Like, it's not this and this. Like, just trying to control everything, not just what I have to. My job is to do my part. Period. It is not to control the other actors.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember him saying it was so simple. He just said, Sean, the best thing you can do is just take what she's giving you and go with that. React to what you're actually getting instead of trying to create this whole scene in your head and how it should play out and being angry. Like, you're not actually in that moment at all anymore. And also, you're not the director. You're just playing that one part, So it was really, really wise counsel. And I go back to that moment a lot. I've learned so much from my husband, Harry, as well. He is a brilliant performer. Tina Landau as a director is, she was one of the original sort of creators of the viewpoints method of acting. And I've been lucky enough to, over the years, do something like 7 or 8 shows with her and do viewpoints with Tina Landau. You learn so much, and I use that method in every show I do. I realize now, like, you find yourself just sort of in a scene, but it's not focal. It's not about you. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to viewpoint and find some deep, dark reason to be interesting, but not upstage anyone. And, it's a great sort of method of sort of finding your physical life, especially.
I'd love to learn more about it, because that was one of the questions that I had in my head, because I know that Guy did teach viewpoints class as well. I know people who came from that and raved about it, but I was unfamiliar with what that is and kind of still am. So do you mind explaining viewpoints and giving us a little more clarity as to what that process is?
I mean, it's difficult to explain because it's such a, it's a technique. It's a technique like any other acting technique, first of all. Okay. First and foremost. It is really just a way of helping actors access a truth, physical life, when you're on stage. Just like any acting method, I think it might not speak to you, it might not help you, but it might be the thing that actually just unlocks everything for you.
Gotcha.
We all, I think, need tools to sort of like if you would imagine a tool belt of like, well, that one won't help me. This spoon is going to do me no good, but maybe in this situation, what I need is these scissors. I don't know, and for me as this actor in this role, in this play, no, I need these pliers, or I need this hair dryer. I don't know, whatever, random.
Right.
But viewpoint specifically it's very movement based. And I think when they began developing the technique, I think there were 7 viewpoints. And the viewpoints are like literally ways of viewing your surrounding. Okay. So the viewpoint, look at me, I'm going to blank.
That's okay.
There's direction, like the actual direction you are traveling on stage. There's gesture, which is, and within gesture, there are 2 different kinds of gesture. There's a naturalistic gesture, like, hey, how you doing? And then there's an expressive gesture that you see all the time in theater. It's very theatrical. Like, so if you said, hey, that would be the sort of natural version, but it might be, if you say like, okay, take that and make it expressive, then you might go like, something bizarre, but expressive. And
right.
There's topography, which is basically using the set, using the room you're in. So when you're working with viewpoints, it usually starts very, very, very simply with direction, very often. Yeah. And you're just moving forward and back, and you're not allowed to move side to side. And it's really just a way of simplifying, taking the onus of like, oh my God, I'm standing on this huge stage. and I suddenly don't know what to do with my arms. I suddenly don't know how to hold my, how it happens to everyone where you're like, I don't
Yeah.
know what to do with my hands. You
Yeah.
see it happen all the time where people are like putting their hands in their pockets and taking them out and blah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
And it really is just a technique that happened to speak to me. But what I love about Viewpoints is that ultimately what Tina does is that she works with her cast, the specific cast of that specific show, in a Viewpoint session, and she's like, that movement, that expressive gesture is brilliant. We will use that at some point. She just starts putting things that people create as a whole, as a group, into this bag of like options.
Yeah.
And so what I love about Viewpoints the most is that nothing creates ensemble, a sense of true ensemble, faster than viewpointing with a group of people. And also then you end up doing things that feel like they're literally organically, they came from you. They came from you as a group. It isn't just someone saying, and then at this point you go 5, 6, 7, 8, which is totally valid. I don't mean to poo-poo that, but it's just
sure.
It's just that there's something really wonderful about knowing that, like, oh, this thing came from that one time where I did this with, we did that because we were waiting in line for, whatever. Like, you have this direct organic connection to it, and then you love doing it every show because it feels personal. And so that was a terrible explanation of Viewpoints.
No, it was actually quite clear and very specific because I had no knowledge of it. And now that I do, it's sort of quintessentially Chicago theater, that ensemble-based development of a piece. Yeah. And
well, then, you think about like a Meisner method, where you're because you use repetition a lot in Meisner, right? You say like, I don't want to, and then the other person has to say, I don't want to, and then you do this repetition exercise. That's ultimately to sort of explain and help a younger actor or any actor actually react, to take in information and then react to it. And everybody's heard that phrase, acting is reacting, and it truly is, like, it's so that you're just not sitting there waiting to say your line, because whether an audience consciously realizes it, you sense that from actors. But when someone is truly taking in something and then throwing something back, it's just so exciting to watch. And so all of these, I go back to it, all of these acting techniques are really just, they're just tool belts that hopefully can help performers create something that's based in truth and
something exciting to watch.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, as we do on the podcast, not only do we like to celebrate theater, we also like to educate people about theater. And you did mention Guy, and I do want to mention you, part of your connection to Chicago here still, while you performed here for many years, is you're on Porchlight Theater's selection committee for the Guy Adkins Award for Excellence in Advancement in Musical Theater in Chicago. Of course, and they just announced that the next recipient is going to be our good friend Mark David Kaplan, who we had on the podcast a few months ago. But for those listening who don't know who Guy was, there's no better person to give us a little history lesson as to Guy and his achievements and his legacy here in Chicago. So if you would, please.
He was such a special creature on stage. He was one of those people who was just made for art, for theater, for performing. He loved it. He loved doing it. He loved being in a room with an audience, and he was very special. Whatever he touched kind of seemed to turn to gold when it came to playing a part. He just always brought something very special and feisty but always, like I said, always true. I learned so much from watching him. Like, he just it was always it was always leaning forward. It was always so active and
different and unexpected.
I
never saw him in a play because I wasn't living in Chicago at the time, but the clips of his work that I've seen, my jaw would drop at every new clip because he was doing things that in shows that that I knew, and it'd be like, I'd never think to interpret that song or that scene in that way. And I'm blown away by his creative mind to do that. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I
No,
just
I'm
speak to
glad
that
you
'cause,
did. Because sometimes it's hard for me to collect my thoughts when it comes to Guy. So
of
I
course,
appreciate. Actually, that's really wonderful. It's a great way of looking at it. Like he just had a way of. And again, it comes back to what I said earlier. It's one of the things that I learned from school, but I also learned from Guy is like, really, I know you're playing this role that everybody's watched in this old, Rodgers and Hammerstein musical a million times, but he would just look at it like a role in a play and go like, oh, that's a really fun, interesting, weird moment. Like, what can I do there, to help tell the story better?
yeah.
And it was just magic. He was one of those people that was just magical on stage and on film. And he was a theater creature.
Yeah.
And it was very special. It was a very sad thing to lose him at such an early age, but it was also one of those, in retrospect, I look back at it because it's been 16 years now, which is hard to believe. It's like they say, those people who burn so bright, maybe they're not meant to last. But he really, I just can't say it enough. He just was like nothing else you've ever seen before on stage, which is why it was so exciting when you knew that you were sitting in a show watching Guy. You felt like you were watching something very, very special that no one else was going to get to see. And you're like, well, I can't believe I'm taking this in right now. I get to be here right now watching this. And it's one of the reasons why I'm so grateful that he did start sort of his foray into on-camera work. I'm grateful that we have the David Dance, because it's this little independent film that is just beautiful. And what's really wonderful, and I will say this for all of the listeners, what's really wonderful about the David Dance is that Guy was essentially playing a character that was very much like him. So really what he did is just he just decided, and I remember him telling me, like, I think I'm just going to kind of be me, because the character is very much just like me. So what's wonderful about that movie is that it's just filled with all of these wonderful little Guyisms that he used to do, like little facial tics that he had, and he'd be like, and all of these weird little sort of things that he would do that you just go like, oh my God, that's so Guy. And there it is, like, captured on film forever, which is lovely. And then he had this one like cameo on 30 Rock that is just hilarious. So yeah.
I don't know that I've seen that. I'll have to find it out.
Yeah, it's when Alec Baldwin and Tina Fey go, and Alec Baldwin is engaged to Selma Hayek, and they go to Cartier, to get a ring, and he's the sales rep. He's the salesperson helping him with the ring, and it's hilarious. It's hilarious. I highly recommend it.
For sure, I'm gonna look for it.
The episode is called The One.
The One. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Easier to search that way.
And he's like in the teaser, like the scene before the very first scene of the episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all that about him. He was truly a special person.
Yeah, he really was.
Yes, and hugely missed. And the award that Porchlight gives out every year
I couldn't. Michael Weber. It was his idea. He called me years and years ago, right after actually Guy passed, and asked if it would be okay if he did this, and I just was so touched that he wanted to do that. And because Michael, at that point was new to Porchlight, and the sort of interesting ironic twist is that Guy never worked at Porchlight. He was but I just think it's also just wonderful and amazing that Michael was like, but that doesn't matter. Like it's about awarding excellence in Chicago theater, which, Guy he held it beloved in his heart. He loved Chicago, as do I.
Yeah, and as the Chicago theater community did for him as well.
Yeah.
Since you mentioned that you have a love for Chicago, I'm curious, now that you've been doing TV and film and Broadway, you come through here every so often and maybe do a little TV stuff, but do you prefer New York over Chicago? Or
That's a really, I knew you were going to ask me that question, and it's really, really hard to answer that because they're just it's just so different. It's so different.
I know. Yeah.
New York is, it's it's where commercial theater is based, and so you want to make some money, then you move here and you get, and you get in a long running show, and that's the sort of like goal. If you're trying to like, okay, well, I want to retire by this, and I want to do this, and I want a house. And so you go, okay, well, not that you can't do that in Chicago. It's of course 100% possible. But the thing that I love about Chicago, and I'm so grateful that it was a part of my journey, if you will, is that the theater in Chicago is very largely subscription based. So this is my analyzation of it anyway. So you've got all these theaters that basically are doing 4 to 5 shows a year. And so as a very young actor, after I did my 2 years in Forever Plaid, suddenly I'm a Chicago person, but I've never really worked in Chicago, kind of like the regional theaters of Chicago. And what's wonderful about it is that, so you're like, okay, well, I'm going to do, for me, I'm going to do Kismet at the Marriott for the beginning of the year. And then the next show possibly will be this at Drury Lane Oakbrook, but Evergreen Park is doing this. I'm talking about 1994 here,
Yeah, of course.
And so the end result is that you're bouncing around and you're doing shows 3 months at a time. And, in retrospect, I can now look back and go, and that was such a beautiful thing for me as a young actor, because I would go from like doing a play and playing the Pirate King at the Marriott, and then going down and doing, the importance of being earnest at the Court. And then, you're just constantly challenging yourself as a performer, and you're switching it up, and you're like, oh, this is a very drastically different muscle that I'm using in this play than I was just using 2 months ago in the other show. Yeah. And again, it's also not that can't happen in New York, but very often what can happen is that as a young performer, you come to New York, and if you're lucky, you get cast in a show and it runs for a really long time, but you don't get that like thing where you're stretching your muscles and exercising them, and
every few months,
or you're just using the same one over and over again, and you don't, and so I'm very grateful for the sort of diversity that I was able to explore in Chicago, because I was there for it was about 15 years.
Yeah.
And I miss it. I miss it.
Yeah.
But I was just, for me personally, it wasn't necessarily really like a strong decision of like, it wasn't like, I got to get out of here. It was I was being pulled, and as was Guy, kind of being, over the years, I had been pulled to New York. And so we just kind of decided to follow it.
And of course, the burning question is, do you prefer deep dish or do you prefer New York style? Everybody wants to know.
Chicago.
Really? 100%. All right.
I need, okay. Oh, I crave it. I'm like, I need a stuffed pizza. So.
Okay, so now that's interesting. Malnati's or Giordano's or something else? Do you have a preference?
My favorite is Chicago's pizza. It's actually Chicago's pizza, deep dish, stuffed, artichokes, pepperoni.
Oh, that does sound good.
Oh, yeah. I gotta go.
I'll order you one up and see if they do one of those. They do those Taste of Chicago FedEx overnights. I got you.
Believe me. My dear friends, Kate Fry, Tim Kaine, dear friends of mine, Chicago actors, they have sent me Lou Malnati's frozen deep dish stuffed pizza, and I'm just like, This is the best. I have the best friends.
Best friends ever. That's right. Besides what pizza people should get here in Chicago, what is some of the best advice you can give to aspiring theater makers?
Theater makers, specifically actors, or just anybody that's
Anybody making theater, directors, choreographers, anybody who you may have encountered in your career that, hey, I learned you should be this type of director or you shouldn't be this type of choreographer. That type of advice, or even from an actor's perspective.
From my perspective, I think I've already said it, which is basically like, if you want something to be funny, if you want something to be wildly entertaining, engaging, compelling, just whatever it is, I don't care how farcical it is, I don't care how over the top it is, find some truth to base it in, because that's what people respond to, even if it's like waka waka, that's what makes things funny. It's what that's what basically sets the joke up so you can knock it down. And it certainly is what makes a drama work, so it's I mean, that's sort of my gut reaction to answering that question. Yeah.
Great. There's a famous story about Lunt-Fontanne. I don't know if you've ever heard this, where they were doing a play.
Mm-hmm.
And about the cup of coffee,
this tea. Yeah. I think it was
cup of tea.
Yeah,
tea. Yeah,
yeah.
And for you listeners who are not familiar with it, in brief, there was a line of dialogue that Mr. Lunt was not getting a laugh on anymore, and they had this golden rule: never talk about the show outside of the theater. But this was killing him. He wasn't getting a laugh anymore, and he finally asked his wife one night at home, "Honey, I can't get that laugh anymore. When I say, 'Can I please have a cup of tea?' Why am I not getting a laugh anymore?" And she said, "Because you're not asking for the cup of tea anymore. You're asking for the laugh." And I always remember that. And it's so brilliant. I actually just mentioned that to one of my castmates in On Your Feet, because I was falling into that trap. Suddenly my laugh was getting smaller and smaller. And I thought, go back to just say the line.
Just ask for the tea.
And the laugh went right back.
I say it all the time. I say it because my job largely in chess is kind of surprisingly with Walter de Courcy, he's kind of a comic character. It's a dark comedy, but it's comedy. Yeah. And I'm constantly going back to my, I'll walk off stage and I'll go, just ask for the tea. Just ask for the tea.
Yeah.
And it always works. It always works. I mean, you have to take into account it's a different audience. Sure. Theater changes, and some people, some audiences collectively decide that like they're, that's not their response is not going to be that. But yes, in general, to be happy as a performer by the end of the show, just ask for the tea. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you knew that story too. I figured you did. You're such.
I love it. That's one of my faves. Yeah. It's a mantra. Absolutely.
And you're using it even up until this conversation every night in Chess on Broadway.
Yes.
My friend, we're going to wrap up because I know you've got a busy day, but where can our listeners find you online?
I am on Instagram. I'm not on anything but Instagram, and it is Sean Allan Krill, at Sean Allan Krill, my full name. Fantastic. That's ALLAN, and www.seanallankrill.com for all of the latest news.
We will have links to both of those in our show notes.
Great.
And before we wrap up, anything you want to add before we say goodbye?
No, I'm just really thrilled to talk to you, and thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for joining us at the Chicago Theater Makers Podcast. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. The Chicago Theater Makers Podcast is a production of Spirit Art LLC, and our podcast theme music is by Paul Langford. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the podcast, please drop us a note at our website, ChiTheaterMakersPodcast.com. That's ChiTheater, makers with an S, podcast.com. We hope you enjoyed spending time with us as much as we enjoyed spending it with you, and we'll see you on the board soon.